I now recognize Rep. Jackson for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman James. This is an open question. The AGOA, African Growth Opportunity Act, is up for renewal in 2025. Please share with us your insights on what that bill should look like, what we should be asking for to give us a sustainable competitive advantage in Africa. And let me parenthetically say, I am glad that there is renewed interest. We've had a long relationship with Africa that we've chose not to invest in the continent. So what should it look like going forward?
Thanks very much for your interest and your support. You've rightly identified AGOA as a key component of our economic partnership with Africa. One of the outcomes of the Leaders Summit was to amplify our engagement to promote trade and investment. That's our signature initiative. And first of all, I would welcome congressional support for its renewal. We're also engaged in discussions now about whether or not the program should be adjusted. It's had a positive impact in the 35 countries who have benefited from those trade privileges, but it has not been fully optimized. So there's discussions underway with USTR and the State Department's chief economist about possible ways we might recommend you consider to update the bill. I would say that, as the chairman noted in his opening statement, it's a good bridge to doing more trade and less aid. That was one of the original elements of the design to help Africans climb out of poverty, help develop jobs, and help improve their economies through trade rather than aid.
And I would just add to that throughout its existence, USAID has played a critical role in supporting AGOA, and we stand ready to continue to provide that support. The support that we have provided includes helping member countries develop national AGOA implementation plans and helping them navigate the rules and regulations pertaining to AGOA, helping them through the meeting the standards of participation in AGOA. And so we would continue to provide that support to AGOA, given it's a critical part of our larger trade and investment infrastructure.
Okay, I'd like to make one comment on that before I ask a follow-up question. I find it remarkable that we've had a 200-plus year relationship with Africa, and we did not have an African trading policy officially until 2000. It's rather reprehensible, and that we've seen a Marshall Plan, we've seen the rebuilding of Japan, but we've never forcefully said this is how we're going to invest across the continent of Africa. And in the last 20 years, we've seen the Chinese talk about communications infrastructure. We've seen them in 2010 talk about the Belt and Road Initiative. It's been concrete plans, and they have been successful, although many African countries have not had an alternative. They've had the opportunity to go to the IMF, and those programs did not work. So when we talk about onerous conditions and expensive funding, we have not offered them many viable alternatives. So I'm glad to see that we're talking about reciprocal trade. In Sudan specifically, the 2020 Congress appropriated $900 million for the Sudanese government before the 2021 coup. What would you think? How much of that money was spent, and is there anything that we could have done different?
Thanks for that question. Although that that subject was handled prior to my confirmation as Assistant Secretary, I think there's a consensus that we did not move the money out quickly enough to have the desired impact. And in fact, in my confirmation hearing, I committed to accelerating our disbursement of those funds. I started work in October, and that's when the coup happened, so we didn't have time to mobilize. That said, it's not uncommon in countries that have had such difficult histories as Sudan has, 30 years of an Islamist dictatorship by a military leader, that the transition, we might have expected that the transition would be bumpy. But I think if that was your question, sir, we did not move the money fast enough.
Thank you.
I would agree with my colleague here, and the only thing I would add to that there is a request from USAID for close to $50 million in the 24 budget to support Sudan, and that is underpinned by our commitment to supporting the people of Sudan in their democratic aspirations, but also our recognition that Sudan resides in a very restive region, and our ability to be able to provide the support is critically important, not just for Sudan, but for the entire region and our interest in that region.
Thank you for your participation and coming forward us today. I yield my time, Chairman.
Thank you, Rep. Jackson. I now yield my